My wife secretly sold our family home for $350, $0 behind my back, then filed a fake lawsuit claiming I embezzled $200, $0 from her, all while she was secretly wiring $150, $0 to a lover overseas. My world is falling apart over her betrayal and our shattered estate. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to get blindsided like this. My wife, Jessica, had always been the queen of deception, but I never imagined she'd pull off something so cold and calculated. It all started with little things: missed calls, late nights, her phone always locked, texts that disappeared before I could see them. I brushed it off at first, telling myself she was just busy or stressed. But then I started noticing her being unusually secretive about money. She'd hide receipts, delete emails, and always had an excuse ready when I asked about our finances. What really set off alarms was the day I came home early from work. I was expecting her to be out with friends, but instead, I found her in the living room, frantically trying to hide her phone behind her back. Her face went pale when she saw me, and I could see the guilt in her eyes. That's when I saw the message pop up on her screen. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Love you, babe." That message alone didn't seem like much at first, but it was enough to make my stomach turn. I asked her who it was, and she dismissed it with a bitchy laugh, saying it was just some guy from work, nothing serious. But I knew better. Something wasn't right. I started digging into our bank statements, and that's when I uncovered the real disaster. Jessica had secretly sold our family home for $350, $0 behind my back. No discussion, no warning. Just a signed deed, a transfer, and her pocketing the cash. I couldn't believe it. Our life savings gone from under my nose, and she didn't even bother to tell me. Then I found out she was wiring $150, $0 to some guy overseas, probably her lover, based on the timing and the secrecy. And if that wasn't enough, I discovered she'd filed a fake lawsuit claiming I embezzled $200, $0 from her. The whole thing was a carefully planned betrayal. It was like a punch to the gut every time I thought about it. How could she do this? How could she lie and cheat so blatantly, then turn around and try to cover her tracks with lies and legal threats? I was furious, but more than that, I felt completely shattered. We had been married for 10 years. I thought I knew her. Turns out I was living with a stranger, someone capable of such manipulation and greed. I started to question everything. Did I ever really know her? Was she ever honest with me? I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. My world was crumbling, and I felt so betrayed I didn't know what to do next. That's when I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew I had to be smart about it. This was just the beginning of a long, complicated mess, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it without a fight. The confrontation happened sooner than I expected. I couldn't keep my suspicions bottled up anymore. I had all the evidence: bank statements, messages, the deed, the wiring details. I sat her down one night after she came home from her work event, which I now knew was a lie. She looked smug, like she thought she was untouchable. I could barely look at her without feeling a mix of rage and heartbreak. I laid everything out on the table, showing her the bank statements, the transfer receipts, the messages from her lover overseas. Her face twisted into that familiar bitchy sneer she always put on when she was trying to dismiss something inconvenient. "You're overreacting, John," she snapped, crossing her arms. "This is all a misunderstanding. You don't know what you're talking about." I didn't buy her lies. I told her I knew everything about the sale of the house, the wiring, the lawsuit. Her eyes flickered with something I couldn't quite place: fear, guilt. She tried to deny it all, claiming I was paranoid, that I was just jealous or insecure, that she'd never cheat on me, that I was imagining things, but I knew better. The evidence was irrefutable. She started to get defensive, raising her voice, calling me crazy, saying I was ruining everything. "You think I want to do this? You think I wanted to sell the house? You're just so damn controlling, John." Maybe I needed someone who actually paid attention to me instead of working all the time. Maybe I needed to find someone who actually cared about me. That was the moment I realized she was justifying her betrayal, trying to turn everything around on me. It was classic Jessica: blame everyone else for her mistakes, manipulate the truth to make herself look innocent. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her she had crossed a line, that I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Her reaction was to laugh bitterly and say she'd do what she wanted, that she'd been planning this for a long time. She accused me of being a terrible husband, of neglecting her, of not giving her what she needed, that she'd found someone who actually made her feel alive, unlike me. That's when I realized how deep her betrayal went. This wasn't just about money or a fling. It was about her completely severing her ties with me emotionally and financially. I felt this cold, sinking feeling in my chest. Part of me wanted to scream, wanted to lash out, but I kept my composure. I told her she had two choices: come clean and fix this, or leave and face the consequences. She scoffed, said she'd do whatever she wanted, and stormed out of the room. That night I lay awake, thinking about everything I'd uncovered and what it meant for my future. I was angry, betrayed, and hurt, but I also knew I had to be smart. This wasn't just about catching her cheating. It was about reclaiming my life from someone who had been lying to me for years. The next morning I started planning. I needed to get legal advice, figure out my options, and protect what was left of my estate. I didn't trust her to do the right thing, not after everything I'd seen. My mind raced with thoughts of how she'd probably try to spin this, how she'd try to make me look like the bad guy. But I knew the truth, and I was done being her pawn. This was just the beginning of a long fight, and I was determined to come out on top, no matter what it took. After that confrontation, everything changed. I started digging deeper into her financials, more than I'd ever done before, because I knew she was hiding something big. I couldn't trust her anymore, not with her lies, her manipulations, her outright theft. I also hired a private investigator to track her movements and her communications. The more I uncovered, the more I realized she'd been planning this for months, maybe even longer. She was cold, calculating, and completely unrepentant. I found out she'd been secretly wiring money to that guy overseas for at least 6 months. She told me she was working late or going out with friends, but instead she was meeting him, sending him money, and planning her escape. The sale of the house was just the cherry on top. She cashed out our life savings without telling me, then turned around and accused me of stealing from her. The fake lawsuit was her attempt to cover her tracks, to throw me off balance, to make me look guilty while she ran off with her lover. I couldn't believe she'd betrayed me this badly. I thought about all the years we'd spent together, all the plans for our future. She'd been lying from the start, and I'd been too blind or too trusting to see it. I felt a mixture of anger and despair. How could she do this? How could she betray everything we built? It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about my trust, my respect for her, my entire life being turned upside down. I decided I had to act fast. I contacted a lawyer, explained everything, and started the process of halting her financial moves. I also filed for divorce, knowing I couldn't stay with someone who'd betray me so completely. But even as I moved forward legally, I couldn't shake the feeling that she'd be back, trying to manipulate her way out of this, lying her way through the legal process. She was good at lying, that much I knew. Meanwhile, I kept gathering evidence. I wanted to make sure I had everything I needed to prove her guilt in court if it came to that. I also started to plan my own financial recovery. I wasn't just going to let her walk away with everything. I had some savings, some investments, and I knew I had to protect what was left of my estate. The house was gone, the money was gone, but I still had myself. I resolved not to let her destroy me entirely. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt humiliated, betrayed, and deeply hurt. I'd trusted her, loved her, and thought we had something real. Now I saw her for what she really was, a selfish, manipulative liar who'd do anything for money and her new lover. The worst part was the sense of loss of my home, my security, my trust in people. I kept asking myself how I'd missed all the signs, how I'd let her get away with so much for so long. But I also knew I had to stay strong, to keep fighting for what was rightfully mine and for my own peace of mind. Every day felt like a battle, but I refused to give up. I was done being the victim in her game. I was going to take back control, no matter how messy or painful it was. I knew I had to come to terms with the fact that the woman I married was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. But I also knew I had to learn from this, to rebuild my life from the ashes of her lies and betrayal. That's what I was focused on now, moving forward, even if it meant starting over entirely. The legal process moved faster than I expected, probably because she was so careless with her lies. Once I handed over all the evidence, bank statements, messages, the deed, wiring info, my lawyer quickly filed for the divorce and began the process of freezing her assets. Jessica's reaction was classic. She played the victim, crying and screaming about how I was ruining her life, how she was the real victim here. She even had the nerve to say I was just jealous of her new lover, that I'd never really loved her, and that I was trying to punish her for leaving. But I wasn't buying her act anymore. I knew what she was capable of. She'd always been manipulative, a master at twisting facts to her advantage. Her bitchy attitude only got worse as things progressed. She'd call me names, accuse me of being a control freak, say I was just too insecure to handle her success and her independence. She kept insisting she was the innocent victim, that I was just too blind to see her true nature. But I had all the proof: her secret wires, her fake lawsuit, her selling the house without my knowledge. While all this was happening, I started to feel a strange sense of relief. It was like a heavy weight had been lifted. I'd been living in this fog of her lies for so long, and now I finally saw everything clearly. Still, the pain lingered. I kept replaying all the moments I should have seen the signs: her secretive phone, her dismissiveness, the way she always avoided talking about money. I kept asking myself how I'd missed all of it, how I'd been so blind to her true nature. Despite her protests, the court process was moving forward. I was awarded temporary custody of the house and the funds I could still trace, but I knew the real battle was just beginning. She'd spent months hiding her tracks, and I had to be ready for whatever she threw at me next. I also started to prepare myself emotionally, knowing that I might have to go through a long, draining fight to get her out of my life completely. In the meantime, I focused on my own healing. I started seeing a therapist to help me process the betrayal, and I cut off most contact with Jessica. Every time she called or texted, I knew it was just her trying to manipulate the situation. She accused me of trying to ruin her life, call me names, or try to guilt-trip me into dropping the case. But I was done playing her game. I had to protect myself, my reputation, and what little stability I still had left. What hurt the most was realizing how much I'd trusted her, that I'd believed in our marriage, our future. Now I saw her as a stranger, someone who'd been lying to me for years. The betrayal went so deep that I wondered if I'd ever be able to trust anyone again. But I also knew I had to forgive myself for not seeing the signs sooner, and for staying so long in a relationship that was built on lies. As I looked at the mess she left behind, our broken estate, her stolen money, the fake lawsuit, I felt a mix of anger and resolve. She thought she could get away with everything, but I was determined to fight for what was mine, to hold her accountable. I realized I'd been naive, but I also learned a hard lesson about trust and betrayal. Moving forward, I knew I'd never let someone manipulate me like that again. I'd rebuild my life, piece by piece, and make sure she never hurt me like this again. By the time we got to the court hearings, Jessica's facade started to crack. She was still trying to play the victim, crying about how I was trying to destroy her, how she only did all this because she was desperate and misunderstood. But her tears didn't sway the judge. The evidence I presented was overwhelming: proof of the house sale, the wiring transfers, her lies about the lawsuit. The court saw through her act pretty quickly. Jessica's lawyer tried to argue that she was justified, claiming she needed to sell the house because I was neglecting her, that I was emotionally abusive, and that she was just trying to get her share of the estate. But I had witnesses, bank statements, and her own messages that painted a different picture. She'd been planning this for months, manipulating everyone around her, trying to cover her tracks. The judge didn't buy her sob story. She was ordered to return the money she stole, and her claim of embezzlement was dismissed as baseless. That day marked a turning point. I finally felt like I was reclaiming some control, but the emotional scars ran deep. Jessica's betrayal was just about money. It was about trust, respect, and the life we'd built together. I kept asking myself how I'd missed all the signs, how I'd been so blind to her true nature. I realized I'd been giving her the benefit of the doubt for too long, ignoring the red flags because I loved her. Now I saw her for what she really was, a selfish, manipulative person who only cared about herself. In the aftermath, I moved out of the house, which she'd already sold, and into a small apartment. I started to rebuild my life from scratch. I cut ties with Jessica completely. I blocked her number, her social media, everything. I couldn't allow her to manipulate me anymore. I also reached out to friends and family who had warned me, but I never listened. They told me I deserved better, that I should never let someone betray me like that again. Their support helped me stay grounded when the emotional pain threatened to overwhelm me. I also took some time for myself. It wasn't just about the legal battles or the money. It was about healing my broken trust and learning how to trust again. I started therapy seriously, talking through everything, the betrayal, the anger, the sadness. Slowly, I began to accept that I couldn't change what she did, but I could control how I responded. I decided I'd focus on my own happiness, my career, and rebuilding my confidence. Looking back, I realized that this entire nightmare taught me some hard lessons. Never ignore the red flags, no matter how much you love someone. Be vigilant about your finances and don't let anyone manipulate or control you. And most importantly, trust your instincts. Jessica's betrayal was a wake-up call, but it also made me realize I am stronger than I thought. I'm not the same person I was before, and I know I'll never let myself be blindsided like this again. Now, I'm on a path to heal and move on. It's been a brutal journey, but I'm grateful I'm still standing. I hope sharing this story helps someone else catch the red flags early before it's too late. Because when someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Don't wait until they've stolen your home, your money, and your trust to realize you should have seen the signs. Now that I've finally managed to piece my life back together, I spend a lot of time reflecting on what happened and what I've learned from all this. Jessica's betrayal was a devastating blow, but it also forced me to reevaluate everything I thought I knew about trust, love, and myself. I used to believe that marriage meant standing by someone through thick and thin, but I've come to realize that sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is walk away before you get completely destroyed. The hardest part was accepting that the person I loved, the woman I thought I knew, was capable of such selfishness and deceit. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but it's also a lesson in being more cautious, more aware. I've become more skeptical, sure, but also more resilient. I now know to listen to that little voice inside that warns me when something feels off. Ignoring red flags cost me everything: my home, my savings, my peace of mind. I've also learned that revenge isn't always about retaliation. It's about reclaiming your power and making sure the people who hurt you don't do it again. I made damn sure Jessica paid for what she did, through the courts, through her losing everything she tried to steal from me, and through the knowledge that she's now alone with no one left to manipulate. That's the kind of justice I needed. I refuse to be a victim anymore. Most importantly, I've come to appreciate the importance of self-worth. I was naive to think I could fix her, to think that love alone could save a sinking ship. But now I see that loving myself is what truly matters. I've started rebuilding my confidence, my career, and my life, one step at a time. The scars will always be there, but they no longer define me. They serve as a reminder of what I survived and how far I've come. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, trust your instincts. Don't ignore the signs. If someone betrays your trust in big ways, don't wait too long to act. Protect yourself, your money, your peace. Because at the end of the day, no amount of love is worth losing yourself over. I learned that the hard way, but I'm better for it now. Jessica's betrayal taught me that some people are just selfish, manipulative, and willing to hurt those they claim to love for their own gain, but I also learned that I'm stronger than I ever thought possible. I survived, I fought back, and I'm still standing. That's all that matters now. Moving forward, I'll never let anyone take that away from me again.